For 2,000 years, we've been fed the same story about Roman gladiators, oiled-up killing machines who spent their days stabbing each other and their nights being aggressively heterosexual with swooning women who threw themselves at these ancient bad boys. Hollywood has given us Russell Crowe grimacing manfully while thinking only of his murdered wife, Spartacus breaking chains and hearts, but only female ones, and countless documentaries featuring historians who somehow missed half the graffiti because they were too busy measuring sword lengths. Every gladiator film shows the same thing: muscled warriors who'd rather die than show emotion, unless that emotion involved vengeance or a conveniently beautiful slave girl who needs rescuing. They were the ultimate masculine ideal, violent, stoic, and about as sexually complex as a particularly aggressive hammer. They were completely, magnificently, hilariously wrong. Tonight, you are Celadus the Thracian, and it's a humid September evening in 78 CE, 1 year before Vesuvius will turn your entire world into history's most dramatic time capsule. You're 26 years old, you've won 12 fights in the arena, and you're about to return to your cell in Pompey's gladiator barracks to find 3 different love notes scratched into your wall. One is from Marcella, the baker's wife who watches you train every morning while pretending to shop for bread. She's been buying the same loaf for 3 weeks now. Another is from Quintus, the senator's son who keeps accidentally dropping his purse near the training grounds, so you'll bend over to pick it up. The third is from your fellow gladiator Crescens, whose cell is 2 doors down, and who you've been meeting after midnight for the past 6 months, when the guards are drunk enough to pretend they don't notice 2 of Rome's most deadly warriors sneaking into each other's rooms like teenagers avoiding their parents. The artifact that proves your story isn't some modern projection or wishful thinking was discovered in 1767 when excavators uncovered the gladiator barracks and found something that made them immediately close the site to the public for further study. Victorian code for, oh gods, there's so much gay graffiti we don't know what to do. On the walls of your cell, preserved perfectly under 17 feet of volcanic ash, like ancient Snapchat messages that refuse to disappear, someone had carved, "Celadus the Thracian makes the girls sigh, and the boys dream." Not metaphorically dream, not admire his fighting style dream. The Latin is explicitly, undeniably clear. You were a bisexual icon in a time before that word existed, and someone thought it was important enough to carve into stone. It's like finding out that the quarterback also dated half the football team and everyone just thought it was normal. This discovery, made throughout the ongoing excavations of Pompey's gladiator barracks from 1767 to the present day, reveals something extraordinary about masculinity and sexuality in the ancient world. As we settle in tonight, we're going to uncover not just what archaeologists found scratched into walls and carved into stone, but what it tells us about the surprisingly relatable lives of men who could kill you with their thumb, but also wrote love poetry to other men between death matches. But before we begin this journey together, write in the comments where you are listening from. It's fascinating to learn where in the world you are. Also, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. Now dim the lights and prepare to discover why this story will change how you think about ancient masculinity and possibly make you reconsider every gladiator movie you've ever watched. Chapter 1: The Barracks of Broken Hearts. Your cell in the gladiator barracks is approximately 6 feet by 8 feet, which is generous by gladiator standards, but would make a modern prison cell look like a luxury suite. The walls are covered in graffiti, not just yours, but generations of gladiators who lived, loved, and died in this space before you. Above your simple straw mattress, someone has carved a remarkably anatomically detailed drawing of male genitalia, which you've grown fond of. It's like having a roommate who never talks but has a very specific sense of humour. The barracks themselves form a large quadrangle around a central training ground, where you spend most of your daylight hours. There are about 60 cells total, housing anywhere from 80 to 100 gladiators at any given time, because privacy was apparently a concept that hadn't been invented yet, along with deodorant and the idea that maybe watching people kill each other for entertainment might be problematic. The smell is distinctive, a combination of sweat, leather, oil, blood, and whatever the kitchen is claiming is soup today. It's like a CrossFit gym had a baby with a slaughterhouse and raised it in a locker room. But the walls tell a different story than the one you might expect from history's most lethal dormitory. Dr. Lorenzo Fergola, who has been excavating and studying the gladiator barracks since the 1990s, discovered that approximately 30% of the readable graffiti involves romantic or sexual content. Of that, nearly half references same-sex encounters or desires. These aren't hidden in secret corners or written in code. They're right there on the main walls, as casual as a grocery list, if your grocery list included bread, wine, oil for training, and Crescens has magnificent thighs. Your own cell contains 17 distinct inscriptions, which archaeologists have painstakingly translated and dated. 3 are about your victories in the arena. 2 are advertisements. Apparently previous occupants offered services ranging from excellent massage to something involving olive oil that YouTube's terms of service prevent me from describing in detail. 4 are drawings, including one of you that someone labelled Celadus, pearl of the girls, glory of the boys, which sounds like a terrible cologne advertisement, but was apparently meant as a compliment. But the most revealing inscriptions are the personal ones. Crescens was here with Celadus, united in brotherhood and more. The Latin word used, fraternitas, is carefully modified with additions that make it clear this wasn't just friendship. Romans had plenty of words for friendship. They had different words for the kind of friendship that involved sneaking between cells at night and leaving scratch marks on each other that weren't from training. Another inscription, in different handwriting, Mansuetus loves Celadus, who does not return his feelings. Venus has pierced my heart, but Celadus remains stone. Poor Mansuetus. Even gladiators got friend-zoned. Though friend-zoned in a gladiator barracks probably meant, I like you, but not enough to risk getting stabbed by you during training tomorrow. Dr. Fergola's team also discovered physical evidence that supports the graffiti's testimony. Personal items found in the cells include not just weapons and armor, but grooming tools, mirrors, tweezers, and bottles that once contained scented oils. One cell contained what appears to be a love token, a small bronze medallion with 2 male figures embracing, about as subtle as a pride flag at a NASCAR rally. Another had a collection of dice carved with explicitly sexual images, because apparently even ancient warriors needed party games. The most famous gladiator from these barracks besides yourself is Crescens the Net Fighter, whose graffiti tagline reads, Crescens the Net Fighter holds the hearts of all the boys. Not some boys. All the boys. Crescens clearly had confidence issues in the same way the sun has darkness issues. His cell, 2 doors down from yours, contains even more graffiti than yours, including what appears to be a scheduling system. Marcus, 3rd hour after sunset. Titus, dawn. Celadus, whenever he wants. You're special, apparently. You get the unlimited friends and benefits plan. But here's what makes this evidence so remarkable. Gladiators were considered the peak of Roman masculinity. You were literally what Roman men aspired to be. Strong, dangerous, capable of violence, honoured by crowds, desired by everyone. You were the ancient equivalent of being a professional athlete, action movie star, and social media influencer all rolled into one, except with more actual killing and less pretending to drink sponsored protein shakes. Yet here you were, openly involved with other men, advertising it on your walls, and nobody thought this contradicted your masculine status. If anything, it enhanced it. The ability to attract both men and women was seen as proof of your irresistible virility. You weren't gay or straight or bisexual. Those categories didn't exist. You were just Celadus, who happened to be so overwhelmingly attractive that limiting yourself to one gender would have been unfair to the other. It's like being so good at a video game that you have to play with both hands, tied behind your back, except the game is romance and your hands are very much not tied, unless, well, that's another inscription we can't fully translate on YouTube. Chapter 2. Blood, Sweat and Love Letters. The morning training session begins at dawn, which arrives with all the subtlety of a drunk elephant in a pottery shop. The Summa Rudis, your trainer, a former gladiator who survived long enough to retire, which makes him either very skilled or very lucky, possibly both, starts banging his wooden sword against a shield. It's the world's worst alarm clock, but effectively impossible to sleep through, like having a neighbour who's decided 5 a.m. is the perfect time to learn the drums. You stumble out of your cell, still half asleep, to find Crescenz already warming up in the central courtyard. He's practicing with his net and trident, the traditional weapons of a retiarius, moving with the kind of fluid grace that makes you temporarily forget he could absolutely murder you if he wanted to. The morning light catches the oil on his skin. Gladiators oil themselves before training, partly for practical reasons, partly because looking good while potentially dying is apparently very important, and several other gladiators have stopped their own warm-ups to watch. "Stop staring and start stretching," barks the trainer, though he's also watching Crescenz with what could charitably be called professional interest. Save the admiration for after training, when you're too exhausted to do anything about it. The training ground is where the paradox of gladiator sexuality becomes most apparent. Here you are, learning 17 different ways to disembowel someone with a short sword, while simultaneously flirting with your sparring partner. It's cognitive dissonance at its finest, like a poetry reading held in a mosh pit. You're expected to be brutal and tender, violent and passionate, deadly and desirable. It's exhausting. No wonder gladiators had such short life expectancies. It wasn't just the fighting, it was the emotional labour. Your sparring partner today is Hermes, a new arrival from Rome who hasn't learned the social dynamics yet. He's 19, fresh from the ludus in the capital, and he keeps his distance from everyone. But on the walls of the latrine, because that's where all the best gossip gets carved, someone has already written, "Hermes seeks a protector. Inquire within." Below it, at least 6 different gladiators have added their names, like the world's most dangerous dating auction. The archaeology of the training ground itself tells its own story. Dr. Alison Cooley, studying the wear patterns on the ground, noticed something interesting. Certain areas show signs of activities that don't match combat training. Secluded corners with no strategic training value show extensive use. Small alcoves that would be terrible for practicing sword work have oil lamp residue suggesting nighttime occupation. It's like finding out your gym has a lot of very specific stretching areas that people only use after hours. Between training sessions, you return to your cell to find a new inscription on your wall. It's in Greek, which means it's from someone educated, probably wealthy. It reads, "Your admirer watches from the stands. Tomorrow, after your victory, look for the blue cloak." These kinds of messages were common. Gladiators received what amounted to fan mail, carved directly into their walls by admirers who bribed the guards for access. It's like having stalkers, but encouraged by society and carved in stone for posterity. The graffiti reveals an entire ecosystem of desire surrounding the gladiator barracks. Wealthy Romans of all genders would pay guards to let them in at night. Some came for quick encounters, the ancient equivalent of a Tinder hookup, but with more risk of actual stabbing. Others sought longer arrangements. One inscription reads, "Lucius Aelius has taken Pardus the Samnite under his protection. All debts paid, freedom promised." It's a business transaction, a love note, and a social contract all in one. Pardus gets a patron who might buy his freedom. Lucius gets, well, a gladiator. Everyone wins except possibly Pardus's other admirers, who have angrily scratched out parts of the inscription. But the most touching inscriptions are between gladiators themselves. These men who faced death together also found love together, and they weren't shy about documenting it. Thrax and Celadus, brothers in the arena, lovers in the cell. Priscus died in the games, Verus mourns him still. If I die tomorrow, tell Crescenz he was my last thought. Celadus, that last one is yours, carved the night before a particularly dangerous match against a veteran from Capua. You survived, obviously, since you're here in September 78 CE, but the inscription remains. Crescenz has added his own response below it. Don't you dare die. Who else would put up with your snoring? The physical evidence supports these emotional connections. Archaeologists have found gladiator graves with paired burials, two men buried together with interlinked hands. Their epitaphs, when they survive, sometimes mention brotherhood beyond the arena. One particularly moving example from Rome itself reads, "Here lies Marcus, gladiator, who died in his 23rd year." His brother-in-arms Titus erected this monument. They share now in death the cell they shared in life. The Latin is ambiguous. Cell could mean their barracks room or something more metaphorical. But the fact they were buried together in expensive graves paid for by the survivor suggests a bond beyond mere friendship. Chapter 3. The Arena of Desire. Game day arrives with the kind of fanfare that makes modern sporting events look like quiet tea parties. It's the Ides of September, and the entire city of Pompeii has turned out for the games. The amphitheatre, which can hold 20,000 people, impressive considering the entire city, only has about 15,000 residents, meaning tourists have come from miles around to watch you potentially die for their amusement, is packed to the wooden rafters that definitely don't meet any reasonable safety standards. You're in the preparation chambers beneath the arena, and the atmosphere is complicated. Part locker room before the big game, part funeral home before a viewing. Some gladiators are praying to their gods. Others are oiling their muscles with the focus of someone preparing for both a fight and a fashion show. Crescens is adjusting his net with the kind of meticulous attention usually reserved for wedding preparations or defusing a bomb. Hermes, the new boy, is vomiting in a corner, which is traditional for first-timers. Someone has helpfully carved "Hermes puked here" on the wall, because gladiators are nothing if not supportive. The graffiti in these preparation chambers tells a story of pre-fight rituals that archaeologists initially misunderstood. Mars, "Let me survive to see his face again," was first interpreted as a gladiator, thinking of his wife or female lover. But cross-referencing with other inscriptions reveals his refers to another gladiator, Antonius, whose own cell contains reciprocal prayers. They were lovers praying to survive for each other, which is simultaneously heartbreaking and beautiful, like a Hallmark card written in blood. Dr. Kathleen Coleman of Harvard, studying gladiator culture, notes that these emotional bonds actually made strategic sense. Gladiators who fought in pairs or groups, like you and Creston sometimes do in staged naval battles, fought better when emotionally connected. You're literally more likely to survive if you're fighting alongside someone you love. It's battlefield motivation at its most primal. "I can't die today, we have dinner plans." The crowd above is chanting now, and you can make out some of the words. Your name features prominently, as does Crescent's, but there's also "kiss him, kiss him," which might seem strange for a blood sport, but this is Rome, where the line between violence and romance is less a boundary and more a suggestion. The crowd wants blood, death, and sexual tension, preferably all at once. It's like reality TV, but with actual reality and significantly more death. You enter the arena to thunderous applause. The sun is brutal, the sand is already hot enough to burn through your sandals, and somewhere in the crowd, at least 17 people are composing graffiti about how good you look in your minimal armor. Your opponent today is a Mamillo named Felix, which means lucky, though given that he's about to fight you, the name seems optimistic. He's built like someone fed a bear nothing but protein and rage, but you've noticed his footwork is sloppy when he turns left. You've also noticed he has beautiful eyes, which is probably not strategically relevant, but your brain files it away anyway. The fight itself is a dance of violence and skill that modern audiences would find both familiar and alien. It's choreographed, but not fake. The blood is real, the danger is real, but you're not actually trying to kill each other unless given the death signal. It's professional wrestling, if professional wrestling occasionally ended in actual death, and the audience got to vote on the outcome like the world's most brutal reality show. You win, because of course you do. You're Celadus the Thracian, and this story doesn't end with your death for another year. Felix yields. The crowd votes for mercy. He fought well, and, more importantly, looked good doing it. and you both leave the arena alive. The crowd throws tokens, flowers, and occasionally undergarments into the arena. One particularly enthusiastic fan has thrown a wax tablet with Room 3 Inn of Africanus Tonight carved into it. Another has thrown what appears to be a love poem written on papyrus, though the meter is terrible and they've rhymed gladius with radius, which doesn't even make sense. Back in the barracks that evening, the post-game atmosphere is electric. Gladiators who survived are celebrating, those who have upcoming fights are training, and everyone is carving new graffiti. The walls are like ancient social media after a major event. Everyone has opinions and they're all permanent. Celadus fought like Mars himself appears on the latrine wall. Felix's footwork was shameful, but his ass is divine, someone adds below. Crescents could catch me in his net any day, writes another admirer. The referee was blind. That second hit was clearly illegal, complained someone who apparently attended ancient sporting events, just to argue about the officiating. But the most interesting graffiti appears in your cell that night. It's from Crescens. Watched you fight. My heart stopped 3 times. Don't do that again. Below it in smaller letters, your victory gift awaits. My cell. Midnight. The guards will be drunk by then, celebrating their betting wins or drowning their losses. The night is yours to do with as you please, and what pleases you is apparently Crescens. Chapter 4. The Economics of Gladiator Love. The business of being a desired gladiator is more complex than just winning fights and looking good covered in oil and blood, though those are definitely the foundation of your brand, like having a good LinkedIn profile, but with more stabbing. Your market value extends beyond the arena into what modern economists would call diverse revenue streams, though ancient Romans would call it getting paid for various activities, some of which we can't describe on YouTube. Your owner, because yes, you're technically a slave, though a very valuable one like a Ferrari that can stab people, is Numerius Popidius Ampliatus, and he views you as an investment. He paid 15,000 sesterces for you 3 years ago, and you've already earned him twice that through victory purses and side arrangements. These side arrangements are documented in the graffiti with surprising financial detail. One inscription reads, Celadus available for private demonstrations. 100 sesterces per hour. No touching, unless negotiated separately. It's like OnlyFans, but carved in stone and with a real possibility of accidental death. The archaeological evidence from the barracks includes what amounts to ancient accounting tablets. Dr. Matthew Perry, not the actor, the archaeologist, though the confusion has led to some interesting conference introductions, discovered wax tablets listing gladiators' earnings and expenses. Your name appears frequently, with entries like private performance for senator's wife, 200 sesterces, and entertainment at Quintus's birthday, 500 sesterces, combat demonstration and additional services. The additional services are left undefined, but other graffiti from Quintus's house suggests they involved less combat and more close-quarters training. But here's where it gets interesting. Male admirers consistently paid more than female ones. A wealthy woman might pay 100 sesterces for a private meeting with a gladiator. A wealthy man would pay 300 for the same time. The graffiti suggests several reasons. Discretion cost extra, the risk was higher, and frankly, the wealthy Roman men were terrible at negotiating when attractive gladiators were involved. It's like surge pricing, but for ancient thirst. Crescens, your net-fighting paramour, has his own economic situation documented on the walls. Crescens, 50 victories, 10,000 sesterces earned. Heart belongs to Celadus. Priceless. Someone has added below, if priceless, why did I see him accept 50 sesterces from Marcus last week? To which someone else replied, that was for massage, you gossiping harpy. The ancient economy of love was complicated. The gladiator barracks functioned as what Dr. Perry calls a homosocial economy with homoerotic undertones, which is academic speak for a bunch of dudes living together who were definitely doing more than just training. Gladiators shared everything: food, quarters, training, the constant threat of death, and frequently their beds. The graffiti documents complex emotional and financial relationships. Thrax owes Celadus 30 sesterces and one favour to be determined. Hermes under protection of Antonius, all debts transferred. Crescens and Celadus share all earnings, witnessed by Mars and Venus. That last one is particularly interesting because it suggests something like a financial partnership, or even what we might recognize as a domestic partnership. You and Crescens have essentially merged your economic lives, which in Roman society was as close to marriage as two male gladiators could get. The fact that it's witnessed by Mars and Venus, the gods of war and love, adds a religious element that makes it even more official. You're basically married if marriage involved more nets and tridents and the constant possibility of death. The archaeological record also reveals the gifts exchanged between gladiators and their admirers. Small bronze tokens with gladiatorial scenes, rings with carved gemstones, oil flasks with personalized inscriptions. One particularly touching find, a small bronze mirror inscribed, "So Celadus can see himself as I see him, perfect." It was found in your cell, carefully wrapped in cloth, preserved by the volcanic ash like an ancient love letter that happened to be made of metal. But the economy of gladiator desire wasn't just about money and gifts. It was also about power, protection, and potential freedom. The graffiti documents numerous cases of wealthy Romans purchasing gladiators' freedom, specifically to continue relationships outside the barracks. Lucius Aurelius has purchased Pardus from the Ludus. They retire to his villa in Herculaneum. It's like Pretty Woman, but with more scars and a higher body count. Your own situation is documented in an inscription from early 78 CE. Numerius considers selling Celadus to Senator Quintus for 30,000 sesterces. Below it, in angry scratches, Crescens will raise 31,000. Below that, where would Crescens get 31,000? And finally, none of your business. The drama of it all makes modern reality TV look subtle. Chapter 5. The Final Performance. October in Pompeii is usually perfect. Warm but not oppressive, with cool evenings ideal for the kind of activities that gladiators engage in when they're not actively trying not to die. But this October, 78 CE, the mountain has been restless. Small earthquakes rattle the barracks daily and the wells taste of sulphur. The old gladiators, the ones who've survived long enough to be superstitious about everything, mutter about omens. But you're 26, you're in love, and you've survived 12 arena fights. What's a little earthquake compared to a Nubian with a warhammer? The final games of the season are scheduled for late October, and the graffiti suggest everyone knows they'll be special. Come see Celadus and Crescens fight together. Romance and violence in equal measure, someone has advertised on the forum walls. Place your bets. Will they kiss or kill? Adds another wit. The whole city is invested in your relationship, like ancient shippers who take their fan fiction way too seriously. In your cell, you're preparing for what you don't know will be your last fight in Pompeii. A year from now, Vesuvius will ensure no one fights in this arena ever again, but tonight you're oiling your skin, checking your armor, and reading the latest graffiti additions to your wall. Someone new has written, "Celadus, you gave me reason to live when I had none." A grateful admirer. It's in expensive handwriting, the kind taught to senators' sons and merchant princes. Crescens appears in your doorway. The doors were removed years ago because privacy is apparently for people who don't kill for a living. He's already in his fighting gear, the net draped over his shoulder like the world's most dangerous fashion accessory. "Ready, partner?" he asks, and the word carries weight. In the arena, you'll fight as a team against another pair. Your lives literally depend on each other, which is either romantic or codependent, possibly both. The archaeology of paired gladiator fights reveals fascinating dynamics. Successful pairs often fought together for years, developing an almost telepathic understanding. The graffiti documents famous pairs, Primus and Secundus, 7 victories together, united in all things. Castor and Pollux, stage names obviously, the lovers who fight as one. Your pairing with Crescens has already earned its own graffiti following, Celadus and Crescens. Proof that love conquers all, except that one time, with the Gauls, but we don't talk about that. Dr. Marcus Junkelmann, who has studied and recreated gladiatorial combat, notes that emotional bonds between fighting partners created a feedback loop of survival. You fight harder to protect someone you love, they fight harder to protect you, and everyone is more likely to leave the arena alive. It's battlefield psychology at its most basic, love as a survival mechanism. Evolution would be proud if evolution wasn't busy creating humans who think watching death matches is entertainment. The walk to the arena is always surreal. The crowd parts to let you through, some reaching out to touch you for luck, others throwing flowers or tokens. A young man, barely 16, shouts, "Celadus, I love you." His father immediately claps a hand over his mouth, but not before you've heard it. You wink at him because you're about to risk your life for entertainment. Might as well make someone's day first. In the preparation chamber, the atmosphere is different from usual. There's an undercurrent of tension that has nothing to do with the upcoming fight. The mountain has been particularly active today, and even the animals in the lower chambers are restless. The lions won't stop pacing, the bears are moaning, and the elephants, yes, they have elephants, because regular deadly animals aren't exciting enough, are trumpeting nervously. The fight itself is a masterpiece of choreographed violence. You and Crescents move together like dancers who happen to be carrying deadly weapons. The crowd goes wild every time you protect each other, every time Crescents catches an opponent's weapon in his net while you strike, every time you block a blow meant for him. It's partnership at its most visceral, love expressed through not letting someone stab your boyfriend. You win, because this is your story and you're good at what you do. The crowd throws more than the usual flowers and tokens. Someone has actually thrown a small purse of gold, which is excessive but appreciated. Another has thrown a wooden tablet with an explicitly detailed proposition that makes even you, a gladiator who has seen everything, raise an eyebrow. That night, the celebrations in the barracks are intense. Wine flows freely, watered, because fighting with a hangover is a terrible idea, and the graffiti artists are working overtime. New inscriptions appear hourly. Celadus and Crescens, champions of the arena and each other. That synchronized net and sword move in the third round was either practiced or proof of soulmates. Hermes threw up again, but from excitement this time. You and Crescens retire to his cell. It has a better view of the mountain, which is glowing faintly in the darkness. You don't know that the glow is magma beginning its rise. You don't know that in less than a year, this entire barracks will be buried under tons of volcanic ash, preserving your graffiti, your love notes, your entire world for future archaeologists to discover. All you know is that tonight you're alive, you're victorious, and you're with someone who understands the strange dance of violence and tenderness that defines your life. Someone has carved new graffiti on Crescent's wall while you were fighting. Here love conquers death daily. It's melodramatic, but then again, you're gladiators in ancient Rome. Melodrama is basically your job description. Chapter 6. Love Eternal in Volcanic Stone. The story of what happened to Pompey's gladiator barracks in 79 CE is written not just in ash and pumice, but in the positions of the bodies found by archaeologists. When Vesuvius finally erupted on October 24th, 79 CE, almost exactly a year after your last great victory, most gladiators were in the barracks. The archaeological evidence tells a story of final moments that are both heartbreaking and remarkably revealing about the relationships these men shared. In one cell, archaeologists found two sets of remains embracing, their arms interlinked in death. The positioning wasn't accidental. These two chose to die together rather than separately. Analysis of the bones suggests both were gladiators, based on the distinctive marks left by repeated training and combat. They died as they lived, together. The graffiti in that cell, painstakingly recovered, includes Thrax and Marcus united forever. Forever turned out to be literally true, preserved in volcanic ash for nearly 2,000 years. Dr. Estelle Laza, who has studied the body cast from Pompeii, notes that several pairs of gladiators were found in positions suggesting they were comforting each other in their final moments. One pair was discovered with the smaller gladiator's head cradled against the larger one's chest. Another pair died holding hands, their fingers intertwined so tightly that the ash preserved the grip perfectly. These weren't just colleagues or cellmates. These were people who loved each other enough to seek comfort together as the world ended. Your story, Celadus the Thracian's story, ends differently. No bodies matching your description were found in the barracks. The graffiti trail goes cold after October 78 CE, suggesting you might have won your freedom in that final year, or perhaps been sold to another ludus. Some historians like to imagine you and Crescens earned enough to buy your freedom and escaped before the eruption. It's a romantic notion, and in the absence of evidence to the contrary, why not believe it? History needs its happy endings, even if we have to imagine them. But whether you died in Pompeii or lived to fight another day, your legacy survived in those walls. The graffiti you left, the inscriptions about your loves and victories waited under tons of ash to tell future generations a truth that many tried to ignore or suppress. That love between men existed openly in ancient Rome, that masculinity and same-sex desire weren't contradictory, that gladiators, the ultimate masculine symbols, loved men as freely as they loved women. When the Victorian archaeologists first uncovered the gladiator barracks, they were so scandalized by the graffiti that they literally built walls to hide certain inscriptions. Giuseppe Fiorelli, excavating in the 1860s, wrote in his private journal, "The inscriptions in the gladiator quarters are of such a nature that they cannot be shared with the public without causing moral outrage." He was talking about declarations of love between men who killed for a living. The Victorians, who thought table legs were too sexy to show uncovered, couldn't handle gladiators in love. It wasn't until the late 20th century that scholars began properly documenting and translating all the graffiti, not just the bits that fit their preconceptions. Dr. Antonio Verone's comprehensive study, published in 2001, finally revealed the full scope of relationships in the gladiator barracks. The reaction from the academic community was essentially, oh wow, they were really, really gay. Like, incredibly gay. How did we miss this? The answer, of course, is that they didn't miss it. They ignored it, covered it up, or explained it away. For over a century, scholars performed mental gymnastics to avoid the obvious conclusion that gladiators loved men. They were just very good friends, the historians said about men who literally carved, "I would die for him," into stone. It's metaphorical, they insisted, about inscriptions that explicitly described physical acts that were definitely not metaphorical. Today, the gladiator barracks tell a different story to the millions who visit Pompeii each year. The graffiti is translated, contextualized, and presented as what it is: evidence of the full spectrum of human love and desire. Tour guides point out the love notes between gladiators with the same matter-of-fact tone they use to describe the forum or the baths, because that's what it was to the people who lived there. Matter-of-fact, normal, unremarkable except in its intensity. The legacy of gladiators like Celadus and Crescens challenges our modern assumptions about the past. We like our history neat, our categories clear, our ancient masculinity toxic and heterosexual. But the walls of Pompeii refuse to cooperate with our simplifications. They insist on complexity, on contradiction, on the messy reality of human experience. Modern scholars studying the gladiator barracks continue to find new inscriptions as technology improves. Multispectral imaging has revealed graffiti previously invisible to the naked eye. In 2019, a newly discovered inscription read, "Here trained Celadus, who conquered hearts as easily as opponents." Below it, in different handwriting, "Confirm. Source. My conquered heart." The gladiators of Pompeii were warriors and lovers, slaves and celebrities, violent and tender, masculine and emotional. They lived in a world that categorized sexuality differently than we do, but the emotions they felt, love, desire, jealousy, devotion, are immediately recognizable across 2 millennia. They loved freely and openly, carving their hearts into stone walls that would outlast an empire. Your story, Celadus, preserved in volcanic ash and ancient graffiti, reminds us that LGBTQ+ people didn't suddenly appear in the 20th century. You weren't invented by modern liberalism or created by contemporary culture. You existed, you loved, you were celebrated in your own time. You were simultaneously the peak of masculine warrior culture and openly involved with other men. You contain multitudes, as did your society. As do all societies when we look closely enough. The final graffito attributed to you, carved shortly before the historical record goes silent, reads simply, Celadus lived, loved, fought. That is enough. 2,000 years later, it still is. As our journey through the gladiator barracks of Pompeii concludes tonight, we're reminded that the past is far from dusty and dull. It's a vibrant, often surprising, and always intriguing tapestry, woven with human ingenuity, resilience, and the occasional ancient mystery that still makes us wonder. Until our next archaeological adventure together, this is the Sleeping Archaeologist, encouraging you to remain curious about the incredible tales still waiting to be discovered beneath our feet. Sweet dreams, fellow explorers. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and may your rest be filled with wonder at the remarkable tapestry of human history.